सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। The pursuit of the appropriate yogas, the karma, the bhakti, the jnana, the pursuit of these paths appropriately, in the way it ought to be done, in the way it ought to be practiced, the mind is freed from the bulk of desires. So the yogas helps in the reduction of the bulk of desires. When the bulk of desires is reduced, you develop a sense of what is known as a dispassion, a feeling of renunciation. There is a mental withdrawal from the affairs of the world, which is what in the diagram he calls it as that state is called as uparati, withdrawal. This sustained withdrawal is giving you more and more time to concentrate on the self. That is dharana. You concentrate on the self more. Dharana it is. And then you continue with dhyana, meditation. In that silence, you attain spiritual enlightenment. This is the sequence. So, the three practices of karma, bhakti, jnana, yogas. We finished the chapter 4 yogas. Just the last bit I'm explaining. The three roads that is leading to the uparati, the dharana, the dhyana, and the samadhi. That's that portion of the text alone we are discussing. Yoga reduces the quantity of desires. Bhakti yoga changes the quality of the desires. Jnana yoga exposes the futility of desiring itself. Again I repeat, karma yoga reduces the quantity of the desires. Bhakti yoga changes the quality. The first is to reduce the quantity, then increase the quality, make it subtler, refined, better by the practice of Bhakti yoga. Okay, and what does Jnana yoga do? Jnana yoga comes and exposes the very futility of desiring itself. To understand the futility of desiring, you need more concentration. You need to sit with yourself a lot to understand that. As you are engaged in chasing the desires, trying to fulfill the desires, simultaneously you cannot practice this. As you are trying to fulfill your desires, you cannot practice Jnana Yoga simultaneously. For Jnana Yoga is the futility of the desiring. In fact, strictly speaking, Jnana Yoga is not even futility of desiring. Jnana Yoga is Tattvamasi. You are that. What are you running behind? You are that. That's what Jnana Yoga is all about. So even to say futility of desiring is a very a very diluted interpretation of Jnana Yoga. So Karma Yoga reduces the bulk of desires. How does Karma Yoga reduces the bulk of desires? The bulk of desires are reduced when you focus on something single pointedly. When you focus on something single pointedly, to that extent, you are not thinking about the others. And when you are not thinking about the others, the desires gets reduced. That's how the quantity is, that's how the quantity of desires are reduced. Ideal. Karma Yoga is fixing up a goal. So when you are focused on the goal and when you are constantly thinking about the goal, to that extent, you are not thinking about the world. When you are no more thinking about the world, desires start reducing. Because the mechanism behind desiring is constantly thinking about it. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate. Sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate. How do you maintain, how do you create a desire? How do you maintain a desire? How do you sustain a desire? By constantly thinking about it. By constantly thinking about means by constantly acting on those desires. So you stop thinking about it, the intensity of the desires start reducing. This is how Karma Yoga reduces in the bulk of the desires. Bhakti Yoga changes the quality of the desires. How does Bhakti Yoga changes the quality of desires? The quality of the desires is changed when you have what is known as prasada buddhi. Whatsoever the result is, whatsoever the result of your action is, you are willing to, you are not agitated, bothered, disturbed, or demanding a particular result. In Bhakti Yoga, you will not demand a particular result. That's what Bhakti is all about. That's how the quality is changed. Quality means the demanding a particular result. Today, we keep demanding a particular result. We want a particular result all the time. Bhakti Yoga means you do your action and whatsoever the result is, you accept that result. Chapter 2, beautifully he says, I explained it in detail when we did the chapter. Chapter 2. Keha Gurunandana, he says. Vyavasayatmika buddhi, farmer's buddhi. Vyavasayatmika buddhi, the farmer's buddhi. What is the farmer's buddhi? The farmer plow the field when the sun is beating him down and wait for the rains to come. He plows the field and waits for the rains to come. The rain may come, the rain may not come, the rain may come in excess. None of it is predictable. None of it is predictable. The fact that none of it is predictable means You have a choice in the action. You don't have a choice in determining the outcome of your action. This is the change of quality. You have a choice in action. You don't have a choice in determining the result of the action. That choice you don't have. But sir, if I do it sincerely, dedicated, it should come, no? You don't have, the quality is not increased. The quality has not changed because you are putting a demand. What is the demand? If I sincerely do, I have to get the result. Are you able to follow? Now you work backwards. What is it? If you have to get the result, work sincerely. Bhakti yoga is exactly the opposite. புரியுறதா? இந்த fallacy புரிஞ்சதுன்னா you will know how to practice bhakti yoga. And even to understand this fallacy is a bit challenging. You want the result. And what is the best way to get the result? Work. If I do anything sincerely, I will get what I want. Therefore, for fulfillment of result, what is the right way of functioning? Work sincerely, and that is karma yoga, no sir? That is what Vedanta also says, no? That is what Bhagavad Gita, that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also, no? Krishna says exactly the opposite. Like a thumb rule you can keep. Whatever you have understood, you can say Krishna is saying exactly the opposite. Whatever you understand, at any point of time, whatever your understanding is, the truth is exactly the opposite. What is change of quality? A sincere doing will not necessarily bring the result in the desired. It will not necessarily bring the desired outcome. Just as a selflessly, sincerely, a farmer can plow the field. That doesn't mean rains will come in the right proportion and he will be able to harvest. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha gurunandana. Beautiful, one of the beautiful descriptions. So what is changing the quality of desiring means? Desiring is always related to a result, the fruit. And if you are not bothered about that fruit, quality of desiring is changed. Are you able to follow how Bhakti Yoga changes the quality? First, Karma Yoga reduces the bulk. Bhakti Yoga changes the quality. Bhakti Yoga, Prasada Buddhi. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Vichara Buddhi. எல்லாத்துக்கும் ஒரு புத்தி சொல்றேன் இல்லையா? I'll for each and every yoga I will give you one name. Intellect. எல்லாத்துக்கும் intellect வேலை செய்யணும். For Jnana Yoga, it is Viveka Buddhi. Jnana Yoga is Viveka Buddhi. Bhakti Yoga is Prasada Buddhi. Prasada Buddhi. Bhakti Yoga is Prasada Buddhi. Karma Yoga is the Loka Sangraha Buddhi. That's all Karma Yoga is. When you are working for a higher cause, your desires drop off. Bulk of desires drop off. Second, Bhakti Yoga tells you that the results is not in your. You have a choice to do an action sincerely. You don't have a right in determining a doer doesn't determine the fruit. That is Bhakti Yoga. There is a totality that decides the fruit. This is called Prasada Buddhi. This is called Prasada Buddhi. Bhakti Yoga, Prasada Buddhi keeps your mind in the acceptance mode in the present. Karma Yoga keeps the mind, keeps you working for a higher and higher and higher cause. Bhakti Yoga keeps you calm and composed in the present. What is Jnana Yoga? Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. What is Jnana Yoga? Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. Now, when you do these three in the right proportion, according to your nature and all that, what happens? You develop a state called Uparati. You develop a state called Uparati. And what is Uparati? Withdrawal. Withdrawal means you have no preoccupations. Withdrawal means you have no preoccupations. We all have so many preoccupations. And we have planned out for the next 10 janmas, we have planned out our life. Yeah. So much of preoccupations we have. So busy for the next 10. So busy for the next 10 janmas. In the poem Lydomia, what he calls it as the unfinished tasks. Everybody has lots and lots of unfinished tasks. If Yama comes, none of us are ready to go with him, because we all have so many unfinished tasks. If Yama comes, sir, in the annual general body meeting, I will come. Yeah. Everything is okay. My family is set. Otherwise, I'm not okay. Just this annual general body. After the annual general body meeting is over, I will come. Okay, Yama will be waiting. He will say, okay, annual general body meeting is over. Samosa and tea is finished. Will you come? No. Implementation of the unfinished tasks. This is called preoccupations. Uparati, withdrawal, means you don't have such preoccupations. You don't have such preoccupations. This is called Uparati. So Karma Bhakti Jnana Yoga evolves you to a level of making sure that your desires get you reach a developed state called Uparati, withdrawal. From Uparati, you reach the next level of Dharana. Dharana means concentration. A mind that is preoccupied cannot concentrate. Mind that is preoccupied cannot concentrate. Choose something that which you prefer the most. Choose something that which you like to do the most, and see how much your mind is in the present while doing that. It will still keep wavering, oscillating. It means lack of dharana. It means lack of dharana. But I am much better than others, sir, because your concentration level is 1%, and other person concentration level is 0.5%. Swamiji always says, you are good not because you are good. You look good because others around you are so poor. They are so poor, so bad that you look good. Per se, you are not good. Up to my personal in my life, up to my 5th class, I used to visit my parents only in summer holidays. I used to live in Chennai with my uncle, and my parents were living in the village. So till 5th, I used to try, and then my dad got transferred and all that, and then we started living. So till that time, he used to live in the village, and my uncle. At that time, my uncle was also not married. Invariably, second class, third class, I still remember. Invariably, I'll come from the school. The neighbor lady will open the neighbor lady will open the door. Sometimes I will sit in their house only. Why go to even? Because inga poina, so sit there only. Those kind of. I'm not complaining. It was a wonderful life. When my when my father passed away, people asked, hey, you don't feel bad that your father passed away? I said, I don't know. Maybe if my uncle passes away, I may cry that I have lost my father, because he is more like a father. He is more like a father figure. So every year, constantly 2 prizes. I'll win 2 continuous and 2 prizes year after year. One is best attendance. They give awards, no, best attendance. No holiday. Leave what I weekly enna pandrathu. Better to go to school than to be at home. So my attendance levels will be good. Marks will be good. And year after year, there used to be a. I remember that governor name only because I got awards from him. That's why I remember. There was, I don't know how many of you remember, there was a governor called Prabhudas Patwari of the state. Prabhudas Patwari or governor இருந்தார் இங்க. So every year he will come to the school to deliver the prizes, and I used to do. So invariably I will be alone. I will be taking the prize and going to home alone, waiting for my uncle to come to show the prize. So I'll be sitting. So one year I got the prize, so the medal, and so my uncle came. By the time he comes back from work, it is 9:30, 10 o'clock. See, there's no reason for him to bring me and toil with me like that, poor man. There's no reason for him absolutely to do that at all. But for whatever affection, he brought me, and he did everything. He has to come at 9:30, wash my clothes, put everything, and then goes to sleep, and he has to go to work the next day. That kind of life. Wonderful. So he comes back. I showed him the marks. I still remember that. He saw the he saw the he saw the he saw the medal. He saw the mark sheet. As soon as he saw the mark sheet, one patak he gave me. One hit, one slap he gave me. It's like, the fellow comes with a medal and all that, with the governor, and all the friends are all asking, where are your parents? They're all in there, and I was like, so, and all of them coming and saying, wow, super, super, super. And my uncle is giving me one. That was the time, the first year, the subject called moral science was introduced. That was the first year, the subject called moral science was introduced in our school. No teachers, no syllabus, no nothing. We really do not know what that subject is. No teacher knew what to teach, all that. So something they asked, something we wrote, and I got 67 marks in that. And that is the first mark. I got some 67 marks in that. He said, 67 mark வாங்கிட்டு, you saying first mark, 67 mark ke first rank. What must be the condition of of your classmates is it? How pathetic. Dharana, concentration. You story solrana, don't forget concentration. In the story, you don't lose your concentration now. All this is said because of what? Concentration. One person is succeeding not because his concentration levels are high, the concentration of others are very, very poor, low. That's all it is. So, the way that you are doing the yogas rightly is the quality control. How do you know that the yogas are done properly? How do you know that you are on the right track? The ability to concentrate increases. If your concentration is not increasing, you are not doing the yogas rightly. From concentration, you move on to single pointed concentration. Concentration is concentrating in a field of activity. Single pointed concentration is sound silence. Concentration in its purest, subtlest form is single pointed concentration, which is called dhyana, meditation. Both are concentration only. In dharana also it is concentration. In meditation also it is concentration. The difference between meditation and dharana and dhyana is concentrating in a field of activity versus single pointed concentration. Very difficult even to have concentration in a field of activity. In our classes, if you notice in our classes, we will not digress, we will not discuss, we will not talk about anything else other than the philosophy. We will not talk about politics. We will not talk about, if at all we mention anything, it is only in the context to explain something. So this is concentrating in a field of activity. But even here, mind keeps slipping. Mind can slip from this field of activity to something unconnected, or it can slip even within the field. What is slipping within the field? In the course of the talk, I want to give an example. If I give the example of cricket Brian Lara, you may say, why sir is not talking about Sachin Tendulkar? This is slipping within the field. This is slipping concentration within the field. Moving from one field to the other field means, if I give the example of cricket, why these people have to give only cricket example? Why can't they give football? Or why can't they give, made in India, kabaddi? Because cricket is not made in India. Like kabaddi is made in India. Therefore, we have to give made in India examples, kabaddi. Kabaddi example, I should know kabaddi, no. This is losing concentration within the field. Another is slipping in from one field to the other field. So dharana is a stage where you focus on a field, you will be focused on that. That stage is called dharana. It will not slip into anything else. That stage is called dharana. For concentration, the prerequisite for concentration is freedom from preoccupations. Freedom from preoccupations. Freedom from preoccupation means you can keep it aside and not be agitated that you have kept something aside. Preoccupation means what? You can't keep it aside. Even if you keep it aside, wherever you go, it will bother you. That is called preoccupation. My daughter is in the hospital. She's not in the hospital. She's well at home only. I'm just giving an example. My daughter is in the hospital. having left her in the hospital, I am coming and sitting and talking. As I am talking, preoccupation means as I am talking, mind is going there. This is called preoccupation. Uparati means these kind of preoccupations do not exist. Sorry, Venkat, I'm getting a notification saying your internet connection is unstable. It's my connection. I don't know. It is it okay?
It's okay. It's okay only.
Okay, no?
Okay.
Break sound break sound break
Not very frequently.
Okay. Right. Okay. That's it. I got a doubt. I thought nobody is listening and I'm just talking on one. Because I got the notification for the third time now. Your internet connection is unstable. So that's it. Right. So what is withdrawal? Withdrawal uparati means the preoccupations, freedom from preoccupations. When you are free from preoccupations, you develop concentration. And concentration is the indicator of spiritual evolution. And that concentration, when intensified, you enter the last stage of single pointed concentration, which is called dhyana meditation. I'm not getting into the details of dhyana and all that, because there is one whole chapter we are going to see that. There is an entire chapter called meditation. So when we go there, we will see that in detail. I'm not going into that. Neither am I going into the details of uparati and dharana also, because in the next chapter, renunciation, we would see that in detail. I'm only trying to connect that. I'm only trying to explain the diagram that we see in the book. The diagram says the three roads, karma bhakti jnana yoga, the three roads leads you to the karma bhakti jnana yogas. The three roads leads you to uparati, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. What are the three roads? The three roads of karma, bhakti, and jnanam. Please understand, looks like three roads in for figurative purposes, it is put like that. How you have to understand it is, you do all the three yogas. You practice all the three yogas. It's not that one fellow practices only bhakti yoga and come to para, because if you don't understand the diagram rightly, you will develop the misunderstanding that one road. It's not one road. It means the combination of all the three takes you to uparati. The combination of all the three yogas brings you to the stage of uparati. And what do you do at the uparati? More withdrawal from the world. You develop dharana. And what do you do at the level of dharana? Much more withdrawal from the world, which is dhyana. And then finally, samadhi, self-realization. So the three yogas, combined practices of the three yogas, the integrated practices of the three yogas takes you to uparati. And the three yogas you practice according to your proportion, according to your proportion and combination. And how do you know your proportion? When we did the 4 types, active, emotional, intellectual, we saw how do you figure out which type you can figure out what type you belong to. We gave some indications for that also. So based on that, you know what type you are. Accordingly, you proportion the yogas. You would reach the state of uparati, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Active type, do karma yoga, predominantly active type. If you are emotional, follow the path of bhakti yoga. If you are rational, follow the path of jnana yoga. And all human beings are a combination of these three. Therefore, they have to, yeah, don't make a chivuda of all these three. It's not that. A carefully proportioned according to your combination leads you to Uparati, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. With this, we conclude the topic, the 4 yogas. We move on to chapter 13.